like the only thing you haven't drained is my bank account.
Video game adaptations, an intriguing part of the film industry made up of mostly men in their 50s and those who still love gaming who want to make a culturally relevant movie to be hip with the kids. Or at least those were the old video game adaptations. If you don't know, video game adaptations have been around for a long time, and have always had a reputation of being absolutely atrocious, or mediocre at best, with movies like the old Mario Bros. Movie, the Resident Evil movies, and the Doom movie. But in the past few years, video game movies and TV shows have actually been an overwhelming success in the industry, but have also had some major failures. So today, we'll be taking a dive into video game film adaptations, what makes them good, and what makes them bad, and how to possibly improve upon them in the future, starting with... As I said before, video game adaptations have been a concept for a while now, and because video games were starting to take off and were looked at as a valuable market, filmmakers started looking at video games and saw that they had stories and characters that they could adapt into film. But filmmakers had a fatal flaw in their thought process while making these adaptations. These filmmakers looked down on video games. To them, they weren't supposed to be taken seriously. The film industry saw this Italian plumber who kills turtles and eats mushrooms as nothing more than a goofy little guy, when in actuality, there was so much more there than that. There could be deep storytelling, emotion, and so much more. Look no further than the newest Mario movie. While not a masterpiece by any means, it understands that a silly concept can be taken and turned into something more. Illumination, as much as I dislike the company, honored the source material in who Mario is, and the characters and settings in the universe. They didn't dismiss this world as a silly video game, they honored it and took it seriously, unlike the old Mario Bros. Movie, where they spit on the source material and honor nothing about the legacy of the franchise and its impact. Now that you have an idea though of what old video game adaptations looked like, let's take a look at... In recent times, video game adaptations have been received way better, due to the makers of the films actually caring about what they're making and adapting. Back in the day, if a video game adaptation was being made, more often than not, the original team behind the game didn't really play a part in the making of the movie. But nowadays, more often than not, it seems like the brilliant minds behind the games are actively playing a role in the creation of the film adaptation. And I believe that is a significant reason why adaptations now are so much better than they were back in the day. And another reason why they're better now might have to do with the fact that video games aren't looked down upon anymore. Rather, people have a lot of respect for them. Their storytelling, characters, settings, gameplay, concept, they're no longer just looked at as silly little machines with programming. But now, let's get to the fun part of the video. Let's start this list strong with probably one of the first actually decent video game adaptations in recent years, that being the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a big fan of this movie. I think it's pretty mediocre, but that's mostly due to the humor and what it's trying to do. The reason why I consider this to be a pretty solid adaptation though is because the creators respect the source material and see that this franchise can be most definitely taken seriously. Yes, they have Jim Carrey playing Dr. Eggman, and yes, there's a lot of humor in this movie. But that doesn't mean that at times it doesn't have emotion or cool scenes. I believe it delivers on that front. It has a very solid story, good characters, and a fun villain that everyone recognizes. And this movie kickstarted a brand new film franchise, culminating the second Sonic film, which is even better than the first, and a third film releasing very soon. And plus, the cast is stacked with beloved actors and actresses. However, a stacked cast doesn't always mean it's a good movie, and no movie demonstrates this better than the Borderlands movie. Now, here's the thing. I've actually never seen this movie before, to be fully transparent. However, I do understand all the plot points, all that happens, and all the characters. And as a longtime fan of the Borderlands franchise, I did want to attain my perspective on a beloved franchise, as many creators have even said that after watching this movie, they cannot look at the franchise in the same light.
We saw Borderlands. The hype was there, 0% on Rotten Tomatoes debut, 3 from IGN, which is very rare. That means it almost doesn't function for IGN to go that low. And they were generous. Yeah, that movie super sucks. Temperature, how's everyone feeling?
I want to die.
I'm maybe the biggest Borderlands fan that I know, and that made me hate the franchise.
Yep, that sounds right.
And it didn't help that on the opening day of this movie, it was graded with a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. But what did the movie do that was so heinous? Well, the filmmakers looked at this franchise with the wrong lens. They were making this movie with the idea that big names equals more people watching it. And with a recognizable name like Borderlands, it might land some people into the theater. They had an inherent flaw in their thought process for this movie, thinking that if they slapped the Borderlands name on a movie that had a stacked cast with a few recognizable aspects from the game, that this movie would be breaking records, when in reality, it was breaking people's love for the franchise. And some of the actors, as most people stated, that it seemed like none of the actors or actresses wanted to even be there. Audiences said that it seemed like they were phoning in their roles. We have all of these reasons, and I haven't even gotten to the bad CGI, bad timing to release the movie as the franchise hasn't really been relevant in recent time, the storytelling, and awful potty humor. Even though this franchise is known for its crude and unusual humor. The same humor that the Fallout show uses, and does amazingly. The Fallout show is an intriguing case, because rather than trying to simply copy and paste a story that's already been told in the games before, it crafts itself a new story, with new characters, new concepts, and much more. But it simultaneously respects the source material, using specific events from the games and in the franchise. Characters from the franchise, locations, factions, and even little Easter eggs. But it never goes overboard with the Easter eggs, or tries to shove all these references in your face. The Fallout show has a simple but simultaneously complicated plot. Characters that you can truly love and get attached to, each with their flaws and strengths. But yet, you can sympathize with each of them. The show makes a new formula for storytelling, and does an amazing job at it. It makes likable and unlikable characters that have various motives, and even if they are inherently morally wrong, you can see their perspective, and see how they may think that what they're doing is for the greater good. Overall, the show is very easy and approachable for newcomers of the franchise, and old fans alike. It respects the source material, and when an aspect of the game plays a part in the story, old fans feel rewarded for knowing that knowledge previously, and are anticipating where the story will go from there, due to their prior knowledge, while new fans feel like they're being treated well, due to how well this show explains its complicated story, and the show is for anyone and everyone, unlike the Halo show. Talking about the show hurts, because a Halo show would be amazing, with the right team working on it. If you don't know, Halo is my favorite gaming franchise of all time, and Halo 3 is my favorite game of all time. And so I was excited when they announced a Halo show would be released. And it disappointed. This show is inherently flawed in almost every way. New dumb character additions, lack of focus on the plot, weird subplots that nobody cares about, new rules for this universe that make zero sense, the removal of Master Chief's interest as a character, and butchering all the events in the franchise and much more. Halo could have been the best video game adaptation ever, but they butchered it on every front. They were 2 seasons in and still weren't even on the actual Halo ring yet, the focal point of the franchise. If the Fallout show was for everyone, then the Halo show was for no one. It tried making its own story, and failed miserably, unlike the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, where they simultaneously respect the source material and don't spit on the franchise's legacy like the Halo show did. The FNAF movie did so much right on so many levels. It pulled aspects from the original games, implemented new characters, and crafted a new story that is reminiscent of the old story, while changing the story to throw fans off and keep them entertained. The creators of this movie knew that only really the fans were going to watch this movie, so they decided to cater to them the best ways possible, making subtle references that were fun, unique, but didn't feel forced. They used people's favorite characters, and they respected the animatronics and story that they told in the games, while simultaneously shifting the story around to keep fans on their toes in anticipation. The casting was phenomenal, and the storytelling and props were even better. This movie is the perfect example that you don't have to follow the source material for it to be successful. Video game adaptations have slowly been recovering from their awful reputation in years past, and are now building up arguably the most hype around any release for film media every year. Obviously, I didn't mention a lot of video game films, so if you want me to make a part 2, then make sure to let me know down in the comments below. And thank you to our wonderful channel members, you guys are truly the best, and your never-ending support truly means the world to me. But anyways, let's get to our shout-out, who is none other than the absolute GOAT, Another Nick. Nick does primarily film reviews on his channel, and he makes some of the best bingeable content I've ever seen, with some very entertaining commentary and rankings as well. He is truly a diamond creator in a sea of slop. So please go over and make sure to drop this man a sub, and get him to 30k subscribers before the end of the year, as he is so close. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, have a lovely night.